I see so many students come in and they're focusing so much mental energy on the, and I would so much rather somebody come in. I would rather a gospel or reggae drummer with no background in jazz, just like not even worrying about playing the bass drum lightly, feathering anything, just come in just super deep, like almost like that's a written out David Garibaldi beat or something. Oh, yeah. It's a gorgeous Friday night here at beautiful Flood Studios in Gowanus, Brooklyn. I'm Nate. This is the 80/20 Drummer, and welcome to the lesson of the week. Today we're going to be talking about one of my drum heroes on the jazz side, Nasheet Waits. I think Nasheet is probably the most innovative player of the last 15 or 20 years. So when I took a lesson with Nasheet, he didn't want to hear anything about fancy chops. He didn't want to talk anything about odd meters or any of my sort of youthful questions. He quite rightly directed me to Warren Baby Dodds and was implying that if I couldn't play this New Orleans march and make it swing, that I had no business trying to do anything else. And of course, like the wet behind the ears pipsqueak punk that I was, I regarded that with skepticism. And of course, the older and wiser, we hope, I've gotten, the more that's rung true. So Nasheet showed me something which I'm sure a lot of the City College folks and people who have taken lessons with him are familiar with, which is just the 3/4. Right, that even the most basic incarnation of it would just literally be 3/4. Right, so that gets to the sort of very root of the drum tradition. So I practiced this for years, and it took a while for me to understand the kind of core concept underneath it. And I'm not saying I'm anywhere near Nasheet, but it finally clicked for me in a way personally that I was able to play it and feel settled playing it and apply it to my playing. And now I want to show you guys kind of a meta take on Nasheet's thing, which might shortcut you into this whole alternate way of looking at jazz, which will get you away from just practicing. So, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to pull out an implement that I haven't pulled out in ages, which is the brushes. Because lately when I've been practicing jazz, I've been starting every session with about an hour of brushes, just because brushes are the scariest thing to practice, and I have this thing about doing what's scary first. But what that's given me is I've noticed that it's improved everything. I mean, it's improved my gospel playing. It's focused my brain. I don't want to get too metaphysical here, but what it's had a direct application on is my ability to play swing. So I want to show you a couple of basic core kernels, actionable parts of the lesson. Here are things you can actually take and shed. So very first, I want to harken back to this Ed Soph technique, which if you're unfamiliar with it, check out Ed Soph's video or check out my video called How to Really Play Brushes Part 2. But it's a clockwise, how the heck do you describe that? It's a windshield wiper, there we go, pattern, but it's a staggered windshield wiper pattern that basically just looks like 3/4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, where the right hand is doing half moons, going counterclockwise and using a wrist whip motion to accent on beat 1, and the left hand is doing this half moon 3/4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's something you'll want to practice, and that's in my brush video. So this is your basic pattern. literally. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Okay, that's going to feel awkward at first, obviously, if you're not super familiar with the brushes, but practice it for a couple weeks. And then the next sort of fundamental thing is a 3-note pattern. I think this is also in my How to Really Play Brushes Part 2, but it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So the right hand is making a counterclockwise motion and then reversing course to make a clockwise motion. And each time you're pressing down on the head. Experiment with that. Worry about the sound. Don't worry about the technique. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the feet are going to mirror exactly what the hands are doing. We're not trying to do anything fancy. So it'll literally be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So with these two kernels, you can make a bunch of New Orleans style Nasheet idioms. For instance, 3, 4. Okay, so right away, if we put the brushes down and pick up the sticks and just make that same motion we were making, it's going to look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Etc. It's not going to sound super great if you move the right hand to the ride cymbal yet. So what we want to do is introduce the skipped note portion of it. The part that when Nasheet does it is like this left hand accent, because that's what's eventually going to be your left hand snare accent. So to do that with the brushes, by the way, this isn't necessary to do with the brushes, but I'm just showing you how it all comes out of the brushes for me, and how the brushes are kind of the bedrock, and I'm building up toward establishing my swing feel otherwise. So for the skipped note, three, 4. So that's the third idiom you want to memorize. And then you can literally put idioms together like 3, 4. And right away, when you pick up the sticks and apply that to your sticks, it's going to feel much more like something you can actually play on the ride cymbal. And I'll take that through the sequence. So 3, 4. And those of you who are taking the jazz coaching course will recognize right away this as one of my hi-hat interdependence idioms from the jazz course. So let's go over just a little bit about what I did there. I started with the brushes, and then I picked up the sticks, and I was going 3, 4, 1. And then if I simply moved my right hand to the ride cymbal, it would sound like this. 3, 4. And that's not super idiomatic because we wouldn't generally play quarter notes on the snare drum. So what I've done is I've just taken all of the quarters that would have been on the snare drum and just replaced them with the ride. So it would be 3, 4. Let's look at how we might take another one from the brushes up to the sticks on the ride cymbal. And I'll just improvise something here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So hopefully I remember that. With the sticks, 3, 4. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add in the ride cymbal skipped notes. So we're going to take a Nasheet-like idiom and use the looping exercise, which essentially involves making loops with yourself and just repeating an exercise as if it's a John Riley 2-bar exercise, and staying on one variation for 5 to 10 minutes. And then changing to another one, varying it slightly, except that instead of reading exercises out of the books, you're inventing each subsequent variation. So it allows you to introduce the element of improvisation, but in an environment that allows you to perfect things. So let's take this idiom that I was working on, which I can't guarantee this will be exactly the same thing because I didn't spec any of this out. 3, 4. I think I did. So we're just going to introduce the skip notes really slowly and judiciously. And one of the most logical places to put a skip note is where you have a. So instead of, you can just play. That works no matter where your 1 is. 4 and 1, although you're going to see that less. And 3 and 4. So let's hear what that sounds like. 2, 3, 4. Etc. You would practice that for 5 to 10 minutes. You would add dynamic variation. And then you would add a variation to it. So one variation you could add is a variation in the skip note. You could do something like 3, 4. Another variation is you could actually add an Elvin last 2 notes of the triplet type of thing on your snare drum. So you could go. Okay, so I think I've made that pretty clear. And the other thing you can do for extra credit is you can actually work in those Nasheet type rolls. So you can do and I would put the roll in the spot where the left hand would have the quarter note sweep with the brushes. So if I'm doing 3, 4, then logically with the sticks, it'll sound like 3, 4. And you can experiment with doing a looping exercise with the rolls too, and adding skipped note accents with the left hand. So etc. So that's going to give you a cornucopia of new ideas. And I would so much rather somebody come in, I would rather a gospel or reggae drummer with no background in jazz, just like not even worrying about playing the bass drum lightly, feathering anything, just come in just super deep, like almost like that's a written out David Garibaldi beat or something. I feel like that swings a million times more than this tentative crap where people are reading stuff out of books. They're not really feeling it deeply. Anyway, one last tidbit I want to give you is the best way to practice this with the metronome. And you want to start out with the metronome clicking on triplets. So it'll just be like 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. And you want to put the accent on the last triplet. So 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, because that'll get your brain used to hearing this upbeat and feeling the distance between the upbeat and the downbeat, which is going to subtly reinforce and make your time better. But the last thing I'll say is that if you really want to go varsity, put the metronome on sextuplets. And I just realized that my amp for my metronome's not plugged in. So this is going to be the first 80/20 drummer metronomeless lesson. But I will demonstrate what I mean. So 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you put your metronome there, and then instead of putting the accent on the downbeats, instead of doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, you're going to put the accent on the upbeats. So 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And that is going to be difficult. I don't recommend you do that right at the beginning, but that's what's, if you can play these Nasheet exercises with the metronome there and really lock up with it, you're going to be a killer. Anyway, thanks for sitting through my soliloquy. And obviously, you know, I love you guys. It's a tremendous privilege to be able to do lessons for you. And I will see you again next week. Peace.